It's going to take a while. He has incentives all over the place for performance. $400,000 if he rushes for 500 yards. Another $400K if he gets to 600. The money keeps on flowing as Lynch will get an additional $600,000 for reaching 800 yards. Another $600K for reaching 1,000 yards. And then he'll get $250,000 for reaching each of these marks, including for 9 and 12 touchdowns. And he can earn $500,000 by completing a combination of 1,000 rushing yards, 12 touchdowns, and a playoff berth. And then he can take home another $500,000 if he's named the Super Bowl MVP. Some of those are more attainable than others, I would imagine. Our NFL insider, Dan Graziano, and our analyst, Darren Woodson, here with us. Tell me about the deal. Is this uncommon? Do you usually see this many incentives thrown into a deal?
Well, I think when you look at a player like this who's had a year off, who comes out of retirement, the key thing to understand about the way this deal went down is when the news broke, Marshawn Lynch talking to the Raiders, the Seahawks might let him do it. That seemed very exciting and a natural fit because he's from Oakland and he wants to play for his hometown team. But then, as I understand it, when Marshawn Lynch found out he's not going to be making the $9 million he was scheduled to make on his Seahawks contract, he kind of went, wait a minute, that's what I make. So they had to spend some time convincing him, hey, you're going to make this money back, or you can make this money back. And there were conversations, actually, it got to the point where the agent would call the players union and say, hey, if he's top 10 in jersey sales, what does that mean to us on an annual basis, that kind of thing. So, because you figure a Marshawn Lynch Raiders jersey, that'll sell.
Yes.
So these incentives are part of that. And obviously, if he's Super Bowl MVP for the Raiders, they're not going to mind writing that $500,000 check because then he'll obviously have been more than worth it.
Yeah. Darren, what's your reaction to all those incentives?
There's not a player out there that wants to work off of an incentive-laden contract. We want the guaranteed money. We want the money that we know that you're going to pay us because who's to say that Marshawn gets hurt in week 2 or 3 and he's out for 3 or 4 games and he doesn't meet those contract needs? Everyone wants the guaranteed money for sure. I understand where the Oakland Raiders are coming in from, saying, hey, you were off the season last year. We didn't know exactly where you are as a football player. Why did you take that time off? Want to see where his heart really is. But to have an incentive-laden contract, that's tough on any player.
So what is it like for the player when hey, I get another few yards here, and if I score this touchdown, that's cha-ching. I'm getting, he's got to follow this pretty closely to figure out what he's making
Absolutely.
here.
That's his agent's job as well. And, Marshawn Lynch's job is to go out there and perform on a high level. Being available is number one, meaning if he's had an incentive-laden contract, you better be available for each and every game to meet those incentives. So is he going to be watching his numbers? Absolutely. I've played with players with these type of contracts who watch their numbers and talk about them in the locker room at the same time. So is it about winning games? Yes, but it's also about getting your money at the end of the season.
And the other thing, this guy was retired. He didn't have to play at all. All this money that he's making this year is extra beyond what he expected to be making this year when the offseason began, and he didn't realize he'd be in Oakland. So
are you saying that's house money? Are you saying it's house money?
I think everything is for him at this point in his career. He retired. When you retire, you're saying, oh, I've made my money. So now he's got a little bit of more.
No, when you retire and you move on from the game. But for some reason, there's still either a passion for the game or there's some money on the table that he wants. You're just not going to go out there and line up every week and get hit as a running back because you just love to play the game. You want the money, and I think it's involved.
What kind of incentives do safeties get in deals?
Oh, yeah.
You get anything?
Yeah.
Interceptions. I think that's a big one for safeties. Games played, availability, big games played, amount of tackles that you had during the season, those type of things. Okay. I think that's part of being that.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, let's switch gears. Let's talk about Matt Ryan. In response to whether he's still watching Super Bowl tape, Ryan said this yesterday, quote, "We are on to 2017. Darren, when you have a tough loss like that, how do you find balance between learning from your mistakes and moving on?
My toughest loss was the NFC Championship game in 1994 to the Dallas.
I was there. I was on that field covering that game.
Oh, I still have not watched that tape.
Really?
It was the hardest thing for me to overcome because it was the toughest loss of my career, early career.
Here you go. Here's some watching tape.
Thanks for bringing it up, Dave. Appreciate it.
But he didn't want to watch.
But I just never watched this tape because it's crushing defeat. It was a loss that we could have easily have gone to 3 straight Super Bowls if we won this game, and it was the pain after that game was just enormous. I can absolutely understand not watching if I'm Matt Ryan, not watching that last. I can't even watch that Atlanta Falcons game last year. In the fourth quarter, it was a debacle.
Well, hold on now. You guys won it the next year.
Won it the next year, yeah.
So how are the Falcons set up to bounce back? It seems like they're still loaded, Dan.
They didn't lose really anybody. I mean, Kyle Shanahan, the offensive coordinator, is their most significant loss. They're returning pretty much everybody on both sides of the ball, so they're set up to repeat as NFC champions if everything goes their way health-wise like it has to. But you talk to people there. When you talk to people with the Falcons last year, I always ask them, like, how are you guys coping? You started out 5-0, 6-1 in 2015, fell apart. And they said, we've moved on. We've moved past it. We put it in the so you talk to people now, they bring that up and say, last year everybody asked how are we going to recover from what happened in 2015. Now we're being asked how are we going to recover from what happened in the Super Bowl. We're used to it. We know how to put things in our rearview mirror. We'll see. I mean, you get that close to your lifelong dream, and you have it. And then all of a sudden it's gone. I mean, that's got to be a brutal thing to
just to get back.
Go ahead.
Just getting back from that. I mean, Julio Jones' health has to be available for the entire season. I mean, it's so fickle as far as being a team that's got to the Super Bowl and then trying to repeat again. We just saw what the Carolina Panthers went through last year. It's hard to repeat and get back there because you have to forgive what took place in the past and move forward.
You said you never watched the tape of that 94 NFC Championship game. Dan Quinn has watched the tape of that Super Bowl. He said double-digit times. He's watched it over and over and over again, trying to process it. It's part of a process, Tony.